A lot of teenagers or people in their early 20s are still figuring out what they want to do with their lives, and that definitely includes what they want to do with their money and just their overall understanding of it. And while money should never be the sole purpose of anyone's life, it is absolutely critical that you master how to actually use your finances in different areas of your life so that you can truly live exactly how you want to. And the bad news is that 80% of young adults between the ages of 18 to 24 are really struggling financially. For those who are teenagers, or again, for people in their 20s, or really just anyone who is getting started on their journey of learning more about personal finance, we are going to go over 4 key areas that you must understand related to how you manage money. And those areas are how to make money, how money is being taken from you, which isn't as dramatic as it sounds, how to make money work for you, and lastly, how to enjoy your money. But before we do that, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date on all of my latest videos. We're trying to get to 350 subscribers, so I would also really appreciate it. Thanks. All right, again, the first thing you really need to understand as a teenager or a young adult is how to make money. And this one is pretty obvious because obviously if you want to build wealth and have some financial success, you're probably going to need a decent income along the way. And since this is obvious, we're not going to spend a ton of time here, but I just have some thoughts I want to share. In my opinion, we have an education issue here in America where school does not actually prepare us for the real world. And in my opinion, one can graduate from high school without learning any skills on how to actually make money. Sure, you might learn some soft skills like work ethic or something like communication techniques, but the reality is, unless you're an engineer, the Pythagorean theorem isn't going to get you that far in life. So I feel like few high school classes actually prepare people to move on after graduation, which unfortunately means that you're going to have to take matters into your own hands when it comes to learning how to make money. And I'm not necessarily saying that while you're in high school, you need to go out as fast as possible and find a job. If you want to do that, that's great. But also just consider doing things on the side like mowing lawns and looking for odd jobs around town, something that's flexible so you can still enjoy the process of growing up and going to high school and having fun. And at first, it may seem like this effort of working may not seem worth it, but once you start earning your own money, I promise that your entire mindset on how you view the dollar is going to change. Because now you know how much effort you had to put into earning that dollar. And that's a skill and a mindset that's going to put you years ahead of your peers. And the good news is that if you pick a good major in college, then you will start to learn skills that will eventually translate into the job market. And that leads me to my next piece of advice, which may be a bit controversial depending on who you ask. But a mistake I see happening with a lot of younger people is that they go to college and they pick a major in something that they're passionate about. And that's the only thing they considered when making a decision. But the sad reality is that a lot of the time, those majors are not going to help pay the bills. Now, I'm not saying that you should pursue something that you hate or totally abandon things that you care about, but you always should be looking at college as an investment. You should be researching majors that you're interested in to see what your career prospects are gonna be after you graduate. A lot of schools even publish their career placement statistics, so a lot of times you can see what the average is that someone's going to earn as soon as they graduate from that program. That's all I really have to share on how to make money. The truth is that the best way to learn this is to just get out there and start working and start making money. The other truth is that you should hit that subscribe button. Again, I'd really appreciate it. So thanks. But anyway, let's move on. The second thing you must understand as a teenager and as a young adult is how money is being taken away from you. And this sounds really dramatic. And no, I'm not implying that money is actually being stolen from you against your will. Instead, I'm referring to common mistakes that people make when handling their money, which ends up in them losing money, and also what some of the biggest financial traps are that you'll face as soon as you graduate and enter adulthood. So keep in mind that most of these are actually going to be self-inflicted. There's always going to be people out there that might not have your best interest at heart financially, but the great news is that in most situations, you're going to be in complete control of where your money goes. You just have have to be careful. But diving right into the specifics, the biggest way that you're going to end up losing money throughout your life is through your own consumer spending habits, unless you learn to control them appropriately. As I'm sure you've noticed, pretty much anywhere you look, someone is trying to get your money in exchange for something else. Think about it. You sit down on the couch and turn on the TV, there's an ad. You leave the house, you have to drive your car, which requires gas. That costs money. And once you start driving your car, where do you go? The store? Money. The movie theater? You have to pay money. You go to a park? Sure, that might be free, but then again, you pay taxes, so you're still paying money. The point of bringing this up is not to stress you out and make you feel bad about spending money. You should definitely spend money on things you enjoy. But if you don't learn how to budget and make a specific plan for where you want your money to go, then you're going to be shocked at how much money leaves your bank account every month because it was just all sucked away by consumerism. And the thing that's even worse is that Americans don't just spend all their money on stuff that they don't need, they also go into debt for it. And primarily, this is done through credit cards if we're talking about consumer spending. When you're young, it may seem harmless to carry a credit card balance, so you might just stumble into credit card debt without thinking about it. This happens to a lot of people. But the sad truth is that having credit card debt is almost a surefire indicator that someone is not going to achieve financial success. Now, it's okay to use credit cards to build up your credit and take advantage of the perks, but you have to remember to always pay off your balance in full every month. And you have to make sure that even if you are paying off your balance, the credit cards aren't motivating you to spend more money than you normally would. All right, and the next thing that's just going to suck away your money could be college, which we already talked about a little bit. But the thing we didn't dive into is the cost of college and the danger associated with student loans. I think a common mindset out there is that the more money you spend on your degree, the better your education was. And honestly, that could not be further from the truth. And it leads a lot of people to starting out their careers already in the hole financially. A lot of the best schools in the country are public state schools that are literally 1/4 the cost of private schools. At the end of the day, you have to do your own research and decide which option is best for you. But in my opinion, it makes sense to just go to an in-state public university, work while you go to school, and try as hard as you possibly can to graduate without student loans. It's much better to start working with $0 in your bank account than it is to start working with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt right out of the gates. But to close this section out, when it comes to protecting your money, you just need to be very intentional about how you spend it, especially when you're young. When you're young, it's really easy to go out, have fun, do stuff with your friends. You don't want to be left out, so you just don't think about it and you just keep spending and spending. If you do that, it's likely that you're always just going to spend all the money you make. Now, you should have fun, you should do things you like, but make a plan for it so that you can just carve out a piece of your budget for it instead of spending all of your money on it. All right, now let's talk about the third and arguably the most important thing that you need to know as a teenager and young adult, which is how to make your money work for you. And this is commonly referred to as investing. I feel like I caught on to this pretty early, but I would have loved it if someone sat me down when I was 16 and properly explained the process of investing. When I was younger, I was still under the mindset that the stock market is somewhere that you go to get lucky. I thought it was the place where you get rich quick. And that's a trap I see a lot of people fall into. They think they're smarter than everyone else and they think that they can fall into overnight wealth relatively easy. But that usually just ends up with them being worse off financially. The truth is that investing is actually fairly simple and it will build you wealth, but it does take time for that to start working. And that's because of a term known as compound interest, which is the real secret to investing and is going to be the thing that ultimately allows you to build a large amount of wealth. Even outside of finance, I think that compound interest is the single most important thing that you're ever going to learn about because it's going to be the thing that financially sets you free. It's going to allow you to take a relatively small amount of money and over time turn it into large amounts of wealth. And I'm going to break down what compound interest is very simply. Let's use an example. Let's say you invest $100 with an annual rate of return of 10%. Well, since you earn 10% a year, after year one, you would have $110 invested. Well, how much would you have after year two? You earn 10% on the initial $100 again, but now you also earn interest on the $10 that you earned in year one. So in year two, you would earn $11, bringing your total amount invested up to $120. And that trend continues as illustrated here. you'll see that as the years go by, the amount that you earn every year increases and accelerates over time. So, put really, really simply, compound interest is when your money earns interest and then that interest starts to earn interest year over year. So, your money starts growing faster and faster. And while that compounding effect might seem relatively small in the example we just did, over the long run, your money is going to start to multiply very rapidly. To illustrate this, let's look at the value of $1 invested today to see what it would be worth at various points in the future. And again, let's use an average annual rate of return, 8%. In 5 years, that $1 invested today would be worth $1.47. After 10 years, that dollar would be worth $2.16. After 20 years, that $1 invested today would be worth $4.66. After 30 years, it would be worth $10.06. And finally, after 40 years, that $1 invested today would be worth $21.72. And that's the point I really want to drive home in this part of the video. If you start investing as soon as possible, you have the opportunity to 20x your money or better. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot more to learn about when it comes to investing, like what to actually invest in. You need to learn about different retirement accounts and what benefits are associated with them. You also need to know how to manage your investments as you get older. Now, you don't need to learn about everything right now, but you do want to start to educate yourself as quickly as possible so that you can know enough to get started. And that brings us to the last thing you need to know about money, which is how to enjoy it. And there's not a ton to share here, but it doesn't mean that this section is not important. You'd be surprised at how few people know how to actually enjoy their money. The truth is that money is just a tool that allows us to build our ideal life. So anything you do with your money should be for that purpose. Now, that doesn't mean you need to go and spend it all on stuff that you want right in that moment. Sometimes building our ideal life means we need to save and invest so that our futures are secure or that we can do this future thing with our family. But it also means that you should be setting money aside to do things you enjoy right now. There's definitely a balance of how to have fun now, how to set yourself up so that you can be secure in the future. And you should also just make sure that you have the right mindset around money. It's not for the purpose of greed or just building up as much wealth as you can just for the sake of it or for the feeling that you're better than other people. That's not the point at all. The point, again, is to live the life you want to and have the freedom to do anything you want. And I don't really have much more to add than that. So that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. Do you disagree with anything I said in this video? Do you think there's anything I forgot to mention that you think might be helpful for the up-and-comers? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, make sure to hit the like button, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.